The clock struck midnight as Ethan hurried down the deserted street, his phone buzzing violently in his pocket. His pulse spiked when he answered, and a trembling voice whispered, "They know where you are." The call ended with static before he could respond. A piercing scream tore through the silence, and Ethan spun around, sprinting toward the sound. He reached a dark alley, breath ragged, and froze. A small wooden box, etched with unreadable symbols, lay glistening on the wet pavement. Detective Harris appeared from the fog, his expression stern. Harris said, "Another wild chase, Ethan. Stop this before it consumes you." Ethan crouched by the box, whispering, "These symbols, they connect everything." In the distance, Claire stood hidden, silently watching, her figure barely visible under the flickering streetlight. Cold wind swept through, carrying the faint sound of mocking laughter. Ethan sat at his cluttered table, the wooden box resting under a dim lamp's glow. His fingers traced the strange symbols as Detective Harris's warning echoed in his head. Ethan whispered, "I can't stop now." A knock startled him, and Lucas stepped inside, his face pale. Lucas said, "I heard the scream last night too. Something terrible is happening here." Ethan studied him warily, unsure of trust. As Lucas left, Ethan noticed a shadow shift outside his window. Claire stood there, unmoving, watching him with an unreadable expression. The room felt colder, silence pressing down like a weight. At dawn, Ethan returned to the alley, searching for answers. The fog was dense, streets eerily empty. He crouched by the spot where he'd found the box, and discovered faded chalk markings on the wall. Claire appeared silently beside him. Claire said, "You're looking in the wrong place." Ethan startled, demanding, "Who are you? Why are you following me?" Claire only smirked before fading into the mist. Detective Harris arrived seconds later, frustration etched on his face. Harris said, "You're meddling with something dangerous. Walk away before it's too late." Ethan's resolve hardened. He whispered, "Not a chance." Ethan pored over books and papers scattered across his table, his exhaustion clear. A headline caught his eye, describing disappearances connected to similar symbols. Lucas entered quietly, setting down a cup of coffee. Lucas said, "You're obsessed, Ethan. This is dangerous." Ethan didn't respond, staring intently at the page. Claire's warning echoed in his mind. The symbols weren't random, they were deliberate misdirection. Ethan muttered, "Someone's leaving false leads to keep us distracted." Outside, rain lashed against the window, its relentless rhythm amplifying the tension in the room. Later that night, Ethan followed coordinates decoded from the symbols to an abandoned factory. The wind howled through skeletal trees as he entered the crumbling structure. Inside, darkness pressed in. His flashlight beam caught graffiti matching the box markings. Suddenly, a shadow darted across his vision. Ethan shouted, "Who's there?" Silence answered. Claire emerged, calm but tense. Claire said, "You're walking into a trap." Before Ethan could react, she disappeared again, leaving only the echo of her warning. Ethan gripped the flashlight tighter, realizing he was being hunted. Ethan entered the abandoned factory cautiously, flashlight slicing through darkness, while Detective Harris trailed behind, his coat brushing the rusted metal. Claire's shadow flickered across the cracked walls. Ethan whispered, "These symbols are like a map, Harris." Harris frowned, scanning the surroundings. A faint scratching echoed from the upper floor, making Ethan's hair stand on end. Lucas appeared suddenly from a side corridor, holding a worn notebook. Lucas said, "I decoded part of it. It leads somewhere dangerous." Ethan nodded, clutching the box tightly. Claire's voice floated from above, teasing and cold. Harris barked, "Focus. We need to secure the place before it's too late." Ethan climbed the spiral staircase, each step creaking under his weight, while Detective Harris covered the lower floor. Lucas followed, notebook in hand, muttering symbols aloud. Ethan stopped midway, seeing Claire leaning against a railing, her expression unreadable. Claire said, "You think you're solving it, but you're just pieces on their board." Ethan froze. Lucas whispered, I think she's warning us. Harris barked, ignore distractions, Ethan. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating graffiti matching the box symbols. Ethan swallowed hard, realizing every corner of this building was orchestrated for fear. Claire's smirk disappeared into darkness. Reaching the upper floor, Ethan's flashlight revealed a mural of cryptic symbols. Harris stepped beside him, voice firm. These markings are a trap. Lucas traced lines with his finger, muttering calculations. Claire's whisper echoed from the rafters. Every step you take is predictable. Ethan clenched his fists, refusing to retreat. Suddenly a beam of light caught a hidden doorway. Lucas pointed. That's the next clue. Harris motioned cautiously. Be ready for anything. Ethan's determination burned brighter as he moved toward the doorway. Claire's eyes glimmered in the darkness, watching, waiting. The air thickened, heavy with impending confrontation. Ethan stepped through the hidden doorway into a vast, dark chamber. The smell of damp and rust filled his nose. Harris raised his flashlight, revealing symbols etched into the walls. Lucas held his notebook, scanning the patterns. Claire appeared silently from the shadows, voice calm but chilling. Welcome to the heart of it all. Ethan swallowed, heart pounding. Harris tightened his grip on his coat, muttering, This is bigger than we imagined. The floor creaked ominously. Lucas said, I can't tell what's real anymore. Ethan glanced at Claire, her eyes sharp and calculating. Silence enveloped them, broken only by distant, dripping water. The chamber's air seemed to pulse as Ethan approached a central pedestal holding an ancient tome. Harris whispered, This is it. Whatever's controlling everything is here. Lucas leaned closer, tracing the symbols in his notebook, muttering calculations. Claire circled them silently, voice soft. The key isn't the book, it's the choice you make next. Ethan's hands shook as he lifted the tome. Harris's eyes were sharp, warning. One wrong move, Ethan. Lucas stepped back, uncertain. The shadows twisted around Claire, her smirk fleeting. Ethan realized the true danger wasn't the symbols, it was the people drawn into them. Ethan held the ancient tome, its pages glowing faintly as Detective Harris scanned the room, every muscle tense. Lucas whispered to Ethan, The symbols are reacting to your presence. Claire stepped closer, her voice smooth and chilling. Do you truly understand what you've unleashed? Ethan's fingers trembled, but he steadied his gaze. Harris barked, We need to contain it before it spreads. The shadows around Claire flickered unnaturally, almost alive. Lucas muttered calculations while sweat rolled down his forehead. Ethan knew this was a point of no return. Claire's smirk grew, as if daring them to fail. Lightning outside illuminated the chamber as Ethan flipped through the glowing tome. Harris shouted, Focus! Don't let the room control you! Lucas stumbled over his own calculations, muttering warnings about unstable patterns. Claire circled the pedestal, voice almost teasing, You think you have choices, but the tome decides for you. Ethan paused, realizing the symbols mirrored their movements. Harris lunged to intercept a shadow moving unnaturally toward them. Lucas scribbled frantic notes, sweat dripping. Ethan whispered, We have to act as one, or it consumes us all. Claire's eyes shimmered, reflecting the glowing pages. Ethan steadied the tome as a shockwave of energy erupted from it. Harris shielded his eyes, shouting over the roar. Lucas' notebook flew, pages scattering with glowing symbols. Claire hovered near the pedestal, her form flickering in the dim light. You cannot control it, Ethan. Ethan's resolve hardened, stepping forward. Harris grabbed a beam for support, yelling, We can stabilize it if we act together. Lucas scrambled to match symbols with movements. Sparks from the tome danced along the floor, threatening to ignite the old wood. Ethan and Harris exchanged a glance, silent determination passing between them. The chamber trembled as Ethan and Harris synchronized their movements with the tome's symbols. Lucas shouted directions over the chaos. Claire's shadow twisted, voice laced with amusement. You think this will stop me? Ethan gritted his teeth, flipping the final pages. Harris blocked a falling beam just in time. Lucas traced the final pattern with his fingers on the floor, glowing lines linking to the tome. Claire's form shivered, growing transparent as her power faltered. Ethan whispered, "Almost there. Hold steady." The chamber's energy pulsed, threatening to collapse, yet they held firm together, refusing to surrender. With a final coordinated gesture, Ethan slammed the tome shut, and the chamber fell silent. Harris leaned against a beam, breathing heavily. Lucas collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. Claire's form dissipated into a shadowy mist, leaving only the echoes of her laughter. Ethan looked at the remaining symbols on the walls, now inert, whispering, "It's over. For now." Harris muttered, "We survived. But this isn't the end." Lucas nodded, glancing at the empty pedestal. Ethan turned toward the exit, stepping into the first rays of dawn, carrying the weight of what they had discovered. The factory was quiet, the battle won, but mysteries lingered in the shadows. The remnants of Claire's shadow lingered as Ethan scanned the abandoned factory for clues. Harris muttered about security footage and unexplained disturbances, pacing near a collapsed beam. Lucas knelt, tracing faint glowing residue along the walls, muttering calculations. Ethan noticed a faint hum beneath the floorboards, and signaled Harris. Harris peered down, eyes narrowing. Lucas whispered, "It's still active, just dormant." Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the chamber, and Claire's laughter echoed faintly. Ethan tightened his grip on his jacket as the temperature dropped. Harris motioned toward the exit while Lucas shivered, realizing this was far from over. Lucas traced the glowing residue leading toward a hidden staircase beneath rubble. Ethan frowned. "This looks like it goes deeper than we thought." Harris pulled out a flashlight, the beam trembling slightly as it revealed carved symbols in the stone. Lucas muttered about a pattern that might indicate a trap. Suddenly, Claire's shadow flickered near the staircase, whispering threats that made Harris stiffen. Ethan grabbed Lucas's arm, urging caution. Harris nodded grimly, scanning for danger. Lucas' fingers hovered over the symbols, trying to predict what might happen next. The group exchanged tense glances, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Ethan descended the staircase, tome hidden beneath his jacket, with Harris close behind. Lucas followed, muttering about structural instability. Claire's voice echoed, taunting and distorted. "You think you understand it now?" Ethan glanced at Harris, their silent agreement unspoken but clear. Survival first. Lucas shivered as the walls seemed to pulse with energy. Harris steadied Ethan as the steps crumbled beneath their weight. A faint glow emanated from the depths, growing stronger as they descended. Ethan whispered, "Whatever is down here, it's waiting for us." Lucas traced symbols frantically as the air thickened. Harris motioned them to slow. Every shadow seemed alive. They reached a cavernous chamber beneath the factory, lit by eerie green light. Ethan's eyes scanned the room, seeing glowing sigils forming a circle around a strange artifact. Harris muttered, "This must be what powered the shadows." Lucas pointed at unstable symbols, sweat dripping. Claire's voice echoed from the artifact itself, playful and threatening. Ethan stepped forward, realizing the artifact pulsed with energy since to the tome. Harris grabbed a fallen beam for support as Lucas studied the circle, calculating movements to avoid triggering a reaction. Ethan took a deep breath, readying for what might come next. Shadows writhed along the chamber walls, alive with intent. Ethan raised the tome and approached the artifact. Harris whispered, "Timing is critical, Ethan." Lucas traced the last glowing symbol while shadows coalesced around the chamber, forming a semi-solid shape. Claire's voice laughed, "You cannot bind me now." Ethan opened the tome, chanting symbols, matching them with the artifact's energy. Harris kept the shadows at bay with a beam, and Lucas adjusted the glowing floor sigils. The chamber vibrated, artifact and tome resonating in sync. Claire's form wavered, but her eyes glowed defiantly. Ethan whispered, "Almost. Hold steady." With one final motion, the artifact's energy calmed, and Claire's shadows dissipated, leaving a quiet, pulsating light. The factory was quiet now, but Ethan felt a lingering tension. Harris checked the perimeter, while Lucas examined the artifact remnants. Claire had vanished, leaving only faint whispers in the shadows. Ethan studied the tome, noting energy traces dissipating. Harris muttered about after effects, pacing carefully to avoid hidden dangers. Lucas traced faint residual glow along the walls, muttering calculations. Ethan sighed. "We can't leave yet, the energy's unstable." Harris nodded, shining his flashlight into deeper recesses. Lucas held the artifact carefully, wary of sudden reactions. The air was heavy, charged with the memory of the chaos they had survived. Lucas discovered a hidden compartment beneath the floor, glowing faintly with residual energy. Ethan leaned over cautiously, whispering his observations. Harris watched the room for movement, his flashlight scanning the dark corners. Lucas's fingers trembled as he uncovered a small sealed relic, clearly linked to Claire's power. Ethan noted the inscriptions and murmured, "This could stabilize what's left." Harris frowned, sensing lingering danger, his instincts on high alert. The shadows in the corners of the factory seemed restless. Ethan carefully touched the relic, while Lucas stepped back, muttering calculations about its potential. Harris kept his eyes sharp, every sound amplified in the silence. Ethan, holding the relic, felt a pulse of energy that reminded him of Claire's presence. Harris muttered, "We should contain it carefully." Lucas traced symbols on the relic, attempting to decipher its purpose. The factory trembled faintly, a residual hum vibrating through the air. Ethan whispered, "This is the key to ending the shadows." Harris moved closer, ready to assist if needed. Lucas's calculations indicated a containment pattern. Faint shadows flickered near corners, as if testing their resolve. Ethan aligned the relic with the energy traces on the floor. Harris and Lucas braced themselves. A soft green glow spread, illuminating the chamber, slowly stabilizing the chaotic energy. The shadows in the corners recoiled as the relic pulsed, reacting to Ethan's careful alignment. Harris steadied himself, watching for unexpected movement. Lucas muttered calculations rapidly, tracing containment lines. Ethan whispered, "Almost there. Hold steady." The energy traces began to spiral toward the relic, converging in a synchronized pulse. Harris's flashlight flickered, casting dynamic shadows along the walls. Lucas adjusted his hands over the containment patterns, sweat forming on his brow. Ethan focused, chanting quietly from memory. The green glow intensified and stabilized. The factory seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, quiet replacing tension. The shadows faded completely, leaving the chamber illuminated softly. With the relic secured, Ethan lowered it gently, a sense of calm settling over the group. Harris exhaled, finally allowing himself to relax. Lucas traced a final line on the floor, confirming stability. Ethan muttered about recording the events for future study. Harris chuckled softly, remarking that the factory would never be the same. Lucas smiled, relieved yet exhausted. The hum of energy faded, leaving only the quiet hum of machinery. Ethan glanced at Harris and Lucas, feeling a bond strengthened through shared peril. Claire's presence was gone, leaving a lingering sense of mystery. The trio moved toward the exit, daylight breaking through the shattered windows, signaling closure. Weeks had passed since the relic stabilized the factory, yet Ethan found himself haunted by fleeting visions of Claire. Harris walked beside him, recalling moments of danger with a half-smile, while Lucas adjusted his glasses, reviewing the energy data they had collected. Ethan wondered aloud if the shadows would ever fully disappear. Harris reassured him that the relic had contained them for now. Lucas muttered calculations about energy dissipation, indicating residual anomalies. Ethan glanced toward the city skyline, wondering what unseen threats might still linger. Harris patted his shoulder lightly, and Lucas nodded in quiet agreement, all three sharing a moment of cautious relief. Ethan entered his study, the relic secured in a reinforced case. Harris lingered at the doorway, observing the protective measures. Lucas examined energy readings displayed on a holographic panel, occasionally muttering to himself. Ethan reflected aloud on the lessons learned, and the dangers they had faced together. Harris added that vigilance would always be necessary. Lucas pointed to minor fluctuations in residual energy patterns, suggesting the relic might still react unexpectedly. Ethan nodded, acknowledging the responsibility they now bore. Outside, birds chirped softly, a sharp contrast to the chaos they had survived. The trio shared a silent understanding. Life would go on, but they had changed forever. Suddenly, a distant tremor shook the ground, startling Ethan, Harris, and Lucas. Ethan rushed to check the relic, ensuring its containment field remained intact. Harris scanned the city streets below, alert for anomalies. Lucas quickly reviewed holographic data, noting energy spikes in unusual patterns. Ethan muttered that this could indicate a new manifestation of the shadows. Harris tightened his grip on his coat, ready for action. Lucas adjusted the containment protocols on the relic. The tension returned in a heartbeat, reminding them that safety was fragile. Ethan's gaze hardened, determination replacing fear. Harris and Lucas mirrored his resolve. The city outside remained oblivious, but the trio knew they had to be prepared. Lucas calculated the energy surge might stabilize if properly managed. Ethan relayed instructions to Harris, who nodded, already ready to assist. Together, they adjusted the containment parameters on the relic, the green glow pulsating rhythmically. The tremor subsided gradually as the energy settled. Ethan exhaled, sharing a moment of relief with Harris and Lucas. Lucas noted that the readings were stable again, but warned that vigilance was necessary. Ethan quietly reflected on the cost of their journey and the unseen threats still lurking. Harris patted him on the back, a gesture of reassurance. Lucas smiled faintly, knowing their bond had deepened. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, unaware of the quiet guardians above. As night fell, Ethan, Harris, and Lucas stepped onto the balcony, gazing at the city lights below. Ethan mused about the future, wondering what other challenges awaited. Harris reassured him they had proven themselves capable of facing anything. Lucas suggested documenting every detail, ensuring their experiences could help prevent future disasters. A soft wind rustled their hair, carrying a sense of renewal. Ethan smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of relief and responsibility. Harris and Lucas shared silent nods, understanding the gravity of what they had survived. The relic hummed faintly in the background, contained yet vigilant. Together, they turned inward, ready for whatever the world might throw next. A month had passed since the city's tremors subsided, yet Ethan, Harris, and Lucas sensed unease. Ethan examined the relic's containment field, noticing subtle, irregular pulsations. Harris observed the streets below, seeing shadows flicker unnaturally across dim alleys. Lucas monitored holographic data, frowning at sudden energy spikes. Ethan voiced concern that the relic's stability might be deteriorating. Harris warned that complacency could be dangerous. Lucas suggested reinforcing containment protocols immediately. Ethan nodded, sharing a glance with Harris and Lucas, silently acknowledging that the calm was only temporary. Outside, a storm brewed over the city, mirroring their inner tension. Suddenly, a flash of light erupted from the relic, startling Ethan, Harris, and Lucas. Ethan stepped back, shielding his eyes, while Harris instinctively reached for his coat pocket, tense. Lucas frantically recalibrated holographic controls, shouting over the crackling energy. The relic pulsed rhythmically, and strange figures flickered within its containment field. Ethan realized the shadows were not fully gone, only dormant. Harris motioned to evacuate the rooftop for safety. Lucas noted the energy readings climbing sharply, warning that the containment could fail. Ethan steadied himself, determined to maintain control. The trio exchanged quick nods, preparing for immediate action. Ethan, Harris, and Lucas moved swiftly, activating emergency containment protocols. Ethan directed Lucas to reroute energy channels, while Harris secured the perimeter. Sparks flew from the relic as energy surged violently. Ethan shouted instructions barely audible over the roaring pulse. Lucas's fingers flew across the holographic panels, adjusting containment algorithms. Harris checked the surroundings, ensuring no civilians were in danger. Ethan glanced at the sky, noticing lightning streaking through storm clouds above. The shadows within the relic twisted, struggling to escape containment. Ethan felt a surge of determination. Failure was not an option. The trio worked in perfect coordination, fighting the relic's unpredictable energy together. After several tense minutes, the relic's pulsation began to stabilize, dimming to a soft green glow. Ethan breathed heavily, his heart racing, while Harris exhaled, relieved that the immediate danger had passed. Lucas continued monitoring energy fluctuations cautiously, warning that minor anomalies remained. Ethan reflected aloud that the shadow's persistence suggested the city was not yet safe. Harris reminded him that vigilance would always be required. Lucas noted that they must document every reaction of the relic for future safety protocols. Ethan nodded, sharing a determined glance with Harris and Lucas. They had survived the surge, but the storm outside reminded them that challenges were far from over. As night settled fully, Ethan, Harris and Lucas stepped onto the balcony, gazing at the city below, storm clouds clearing slowly. Ethan contemplated the cost of their journey and the shadow's persistence. Harris reassured him that their combined skills had contained immediate threats. Lucas suggested continuous monitoring of the relic and the city's energy patterns. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. Harris patted him on the shoulder, a gesture of trust and solidarity. Lucas smiled faintly, acknowledging the bond they had forged through adversity. The city's lights glimmered below, unaware of the hidden guardians above. Ethan, Harris and Lucas turned inward, ready to face whatever new challenges the future might hold.